We'll go ahead and get started.
And that's
it's
what they
5 o'clock.
But the chow was good. I don't know what they did.
Hot sauce.
All right. Good evening and welcome to our building committee meeting. And you should have 3 documents. The first document is simply our agenda here for 5 o'clock. Momentarily at 5:30, we're planning on having our a school board meeting. And then there's 2 other documents. One, the LFK HVAC renovations. It's highlighted yellow. It identifies the funding that we currently have identified, as well as just sort of a breakdown of some of the costs and that are associated with the bid, and but it's not inclusive of, for example, the contingency fund that came up last time, to see what that contingency fund would be, and some of the estimates for cabling. So a couple things that I'd like to just hit quickly is just to hit that highlighted sheet that would identify the funding sources. The grant funding, as we mentioned in our last meeting, the funding that we're able to get for this is a little over $10 million. Spoke with Dr. Daly earlier in the week, and to look at the county appropriated capital funding amount and place that in there. We're also looking at the surplus from the previous year, and then also the surplus from the 2022 year to be able to apply toward this project. And that funding itself would come up to $14,770,590. The contingency fund, since we had 2 vendors, I went ahead and just the 5%. I just went ahead and took the 2 base bids, to at least to have a place value number, and got the average of those 2 numbers and made 5% of that, just so that I have a place value, an estimate of what that would be. The cabling and technology, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to do that off of a separate bid that technology has worked on in the past, and that's a place value, a placeholder currently from Mr. Grant of giving us a ballpark idea. The A&E, our grants and so forth allowed us to do the A&E for this project, as well as the Blue Ridge Check HVAC. So we've used some of our grant funding for that, and also the cost of a third-party plan review. So those expenses would run $2,415,074. So what you have at the on the far right hand side is basically the identified remaining funds available for the project from the funding of which that we currently have identified, and that amount is $12,355. $12,355,516. Now, as we move over to our second document here, this is the breakdown of the pre-bid estimates that came in, and then our construction vendors. And that on this, there is the total for the base bid, and then also there is the alternative bid items 1 through 6. Now, a couple questions came up. We tabled our decision from our last meeting to seek some legal counsel in regards to alternative bid items. And I know that we have been Ms. Salen's shared with us some information in regards to bid items, add-on alternatives, and those type of things. And so we did reach out to seek our legal counsel to ask in regards of how we would do the add-on bid items, and that the items themselves you have a base bid, and then you have the add-on items. And according to our attorney, the add-on items have to go in a sequence. And that sequence would be that the first one, you have to evaluate to see if that is an item that you're adding. But once you put them in a sequence, you can't go to the number 2 if you do not select the number 1. Now,
Rank order.
rank, right.
And they're ranked literally in the opposite order in which we would want them to be.
So in
Ranked
order
for
to
cutting
take
things.
out the solar lights, you have to do one.
Through.
You would then not be able to take any of the others after it.
Yeah, you would go
That's right.
for,
So if it was last,
Mhm.
yeah,
we
the
could
cherry
have it
picking
all.
We
was
would
gone.
have, so when we were meeting
All or
before,
nothing.
and we were
Yeah,
talking
it's all
about
or
what
nothing.
our priorities were, that when the bid documents were put together, it should have been put together with these alternate items in order of our most
Priorities.
important to our least important. And then as soon as you cut one, you cut everything from the way down.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that was the court's opinion in that case over in Loudoun County.
we could cherry pick if we were still blind, but we weren't
Right.
blinded, so
Right.
we were given the names.
And again, that was in another locality, but the possibility
Yeah,
happened.
precedent,
It's rare.
it would have, yeah, it's,
I mean,
yeah.
Well,
and that's always that case, or
Yeah.
change, I guess.
So, I guess at this point, we
So-
committed all of them.
Well, we're committed to, well, the options, the 3 options would be base bid only, base bid plus 1, or base bid all. Well, technically, as long as 1 is approved, then 2 could be approved.
Right.
As long as 2 is approved, 3 is approved.
Yeah.
We also have to look at our fundings, the funding that we currently have. We currently have for this particular project, beyond the expenses we looked at, is the 12.3 million. So,
If we did them all, we're $650,000 short still. We took the low total bid. We're $650 short. If we took just the base bid and nixed everything else, then we've got the money to get it done.
We went over and looked at the school. These alternates need to be done.
Yeah, the only one that I really felt like we could leave out and not have any effect whatsoever on the quality of end product would have been those solar lights. But if you take those out, then,
You take everything else
and
down.
those are,
The cafeteria has to get done.
Yeah.
We gotta get the library done. The exterior windows. Solar lights are really the cheapest.
And the-
They're about, what, 56,000, so,
well, depending on,
well, yeah, which bid.
Yeah, but the 56,000 is what LCW did, and they are the low bid with all the options in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a way, that's a break.
it is, yeah, but
But available funding.
we don't,
We
Yeah, I
can
guess-
only
I could
award the
move.
contract based on the funding that we have.
So I guess it comes down to, how does this affect our budget through the supervisor's side? Because I'm looking at this with the, like, we're already accounting for in this funding, the surplus of 1.3 for 2022. So,
you know,
I don't know, we've
on
got,
that 1.3, are you still gonna, you expecting that this year, or isn't that gonna be available to you spring of 2023?
or are you asking me, or?
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry.
I mean, that's the understanding that I have. That money
Right, it won't
is
be
there, but it
available
won't,
until
but it
later.
won't be available
Right.
are
until
you talking
later.
about, I'm sorry, I was handing out an agenda, the surplus money, is that
Yeah,
what you're
the-
referring
the-
to, the 1.3? That will go
1.3.
through which it has, I'm assuming, the audit process itself, and then that would be later this fall, I believe.
I
Then-
think it says spring, on this
Spring
paper,
of 2023.
Right, then that, but I have that included as part of the revenue or the funding on the.
On the yellow page.
On the yellow page.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's not gonna be available until 2023.
But the project won't be finished
Until
until
2024.
2024. So I think,
Understand, I'm just
yeah,
making sure that everybody's aware of that.
yeah, no, I get what you're saying, because you don't want to count the chickens before they hatch.
Correct.
And that's a hopeful
And-
number, not a solid number, correct?
Rob, Mr. Valentine felt good about that number.
Okay, but it, I mean, it's not solid, so we're.
Well, it's
hoping-
not solid as a rock.
Yeah.
That's a good
It's
sign.
fun.
It's
But,
kind of play putty right now, yeah, so, but if you added all those up and came to 14,770, and this is the price with all the alternates, 1305.
But
So
but
we're
I've
still
also,
good.
but I also remember now, I have to use, on the identified cost, I have to use, like for a contingency
Okay,
fund,
so-
I have to put that out there.
So your
that's
true
starting
number
at-
is the 12.
The
yes.
12.
Right.
Okay,
Yes, these,
Okay.
the identified cost part, these are things necessarily you make, it's kind of like behind the scene type stuff, like the A&E, sometimes it's just forgotten when you get excited about the project. And then, the contingency fund itself is money that, it's contingent
Okay.
upon,
now I know that's a cost, the A&E is a cost that has to
Yes.
be figured into this. But has that already been paid? And not, because I know you said that came out of grant money, but is it this $10 million grant money, or was
Yes.
that another
it's
grant?
out of the $10 million grant money.
Okay.
Yes, and it's being paid, we get a monthly,
Yeah.
we get a monthly
Right.
invoice.
Because we've gone through each phases of the
Right.
design
Right,
and
that's,
bidding
but I
process.
didn't know if it was, because, I know the grant money has been grant money for this, grant money for that, so I just didn't know if that was earmarked specifically for that, and it wasn't inclusive of this particular grant money.
That's correct.
Okay.
That grant money, those A&Es, it's eating away at that money.
It's inclusive
It's
of.
inclusive
Okay.
of. It eats away at that 10 million because the grant allows us to use that for A&E.
Okay, so you're saying between the 12, it's 600 and some?
650,084, yeah, $650,084 is what we're short. And on the low bid with the alternates all included, the alternates come out to 675,900. So we want to balance the budget on this project. The
Yes, we
alternates get
do.
cut.
With, yeah. Well, let me ask you this. And I don't know, because of how much, what do you call it, Jeff? Value engineering.
Value engineering.
When we get down, for example, and maybe I misunderstood, but the kitchen, I didn't know we were replacing the current freezer and cooler unit. I thought we were adding on an additional, and that was staying. Does it have to be? Is there an issue with that we couldn't say, no, we're gonna keep that and just add the additional?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know what the equipment manufacturer has available. Combination units, from my understanding, are commonplace.
No, I mean, leave
Yeah.
that one like it is.
I don't know if
bother.
we could and
And
then
just-
add the one to the,
Yeah.
The insulation is broke down on those walls and it's deteriorated.
yeah, and I'm
Okay.
trying to think.
A
Well, that's
lot of
what I'm asking.
condensation.
You know,
built up
the
inside.
outside looked great. Like I said, that kitchen, and since it's being videoed, I'm just saying, people, if your children go to LFK, their food comes out of the most spick and span kitchen I've ever seen in my life. But, okay, then the floor replacement, is there a reason, because that floor, I mean, like you said, you can eat off that darn floor. Is there a reason that's gotta be replaced?
The kitchen floor?
Yeah, it's got replacement, floor replacement.
That is in,
Is that item 4?
that's item 4.
Yeah, kitchen upgrades.
It doesn't need to be, no. And could that be VE'd or value engineered out? Yes, it could.
Okay, so let's
So,
circle
no.
that one as,
What percentage of that it is, I don't know, but.
yeah.
Now, one of the things I don't see added in here for funding is I thought we had discussed that part of the kitchen upgrades could be paid for out of the cafeteria fund.
That's
Yes.
right.
Have we
Yeah.
figured out how much specifically?
That is true.
I
It's coming
have
out
no
of
idea. I
cafeteria
don't
fund?
believe so.
We have
I think
not.
that's important.
We have not.
Because that is, well, there's not a dollar amount
The-
next to it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
You mean the kitchen?
Nothing, there's no dollar amount.
Yeah.
They
Well,
hadn't
the
paid
alternate
attention.
Item
four,
four.
well, it's an awful big number though, but there's a large list. So it says kitchen upgrades, but I don't know
Walk-in
exactly.
freezer.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
It's-
like
it's
the
above the
walk-in
description.
cooler, freezer, that's an appliance. That should be able to be covered by the.
Up there,
cafeteria
okay.
fund. Dishwasher should be able to be covered by that.
I've
I don't
found
know about
myself
the
looking at
counter
the same thing.
modifications or the floor replacement, but. And then obviously alternate bid item 5, those can't come out of cafeteria fund because they're
No.
renovation
No.
expenses.
No.
but-
Yeah.
But that's $258,800 if they covered that.
Right. We need to know that
Like
number. Like, yeah, ASAP.
So you could take that off the bottom price.
That, I mean, that's a
That could be
significant amount of money.
deducted from the
That
670.
gets us
You're
almost
halfway there.
there,
You're
yeah,
halfway there.
exactly. And then I'm looking for that list that was handed out to us at one of the previous meetings where we had all the little areas. You guys had come up with 1.2 million
Still gotta
be the
cuts that you
freezer.
could do.
But there's
And I have it in
there's a
here somewhere.
cafeteria
That's the
fund.
That's a cut.
Well, yeah,
That
but
is
you don't know
all
what's
it
in
is.
there.
This is this. This,
There's
all the
2
work
million.
you see listed here is part of those
What were
potential
those?
cuts.
There were
What's
other
that from?
ones though.
Yeah, there were a few
There
others,
was
yeah.
like, there were
Exactly.
some pretty.
There were some
significant
other
ones,
ones on
like,
there.
The number of light receptacles, it said the receptacle
I'd
number
have to go
count
back
was
and look at what the
overage.
AED originally provided, but there were more, yes.
Yeah, 1.205,804. So surveyor stakeout, not needed, question mark, that's
Right.
10,000. No site demo for generator.
Correct.
No custom reception desks replaced with furniture, that'd be 23,000. We've got the exterior and the sonotubes. Something with whiteboards, acoustical wall tile panels, where's the big ones, we'll find a big one. Okay, so this says the kitchen equipment, the walk-in freezer, dishwasher, and hood, that's 150,000. So that would be what could come out of the cafeteria fund.
Right. That would be equipment or appliances.
All right, let me put that on here so that it's cafeteria fund. We would be looking at being able to pull 150,300. Don't add wall padding, that'd be 5,000. Don't replace the stage curtain, that'd be 6,000. Lessen the tall classroom cabinet units, that's another 30,000. And then the big one is the plumbing fixture overcount in estimate is $153,406. What is that? Why are we overcounting by $150,000?
Well, that was more of a code requirement based on the new ADA requirements with the current fixture count. Have to meet current county codes based on the building occupancy load. So he was able, after discussions with the county, he was able to reduce that number of
Okay,
fixtures.
so that
in the
one's already
building.
been taken, that's already
That's
been
out,
cut,
yeah.
that's already been cut, okay, so that's cut. Roof cost, square foot savings based off of Blue Ridge Technical Center at 2311 square feet rather than 2456 is $85,000.
Yeah.
Is that
That was
accounted for as
that was
well?
the cost per square foot, in other words, off the bids for the Blue Ridge Tech membrane roof replacement.
Okay.
That 23 number is what became a cost per square foot, and he adjusted the number for the roof
So the
replacement.
numbers have already been adjusted for
Yeah.
that? Okay, all right, so that one's already done. Demo the existing cafeteria stage is 50,000. Specially designed pod entries is also 50,000. So are
That's
some of these
particular
things?
wall coverings, special marker boards outside the entry on the walls in the hallway as you go into the classroom pods. Now, those numbers, I want to remind, were based off the construction estimate at the time when we did that, so.
Which could,
Be different
And now
depending on how
you've
they
got
bid
the
it.
real
Okay.
number, so there, you
Okay.
could see some difference there.
But there are areas in here where we can still.
You can still value
cut
engineer,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
by a few hundred thousand?
I would hate to say until we
Okay,
sat down with the selected
Mm-hmm.
contractor and went through his price, for all those tasks. Again, all new building systems in this, from the rooftop to the HVAC to the plumbing to the mechanical, the electrical. Those are kind of things are kind of hard to cut or reduce. It's the other big factors, kind of like we have here, I won't say the aesthetics or the cosmetic features. But it can all certainly be looked at as part of once the contractor's selected.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I definitely, I'm glad to have gone through the school, because like I said, there's a lot of things that have been changed since I was last there, and the condition, I mean, yeah, it definitely needs the renovation, and I know that we both had issues of whether the gym needed to be done, and then after looking at it, I thought, well, you know, not doing the gym now, just push that down the road a couple of years, that doing it now just made more sense when you've got everything going on to do it at this point. The one thing I still question, and you know, if you can make it make sense to me, I'm not closed off to rethinking it, but in the cafeteria, and we talked about it that day, we're taking a storage area, well, a stage that's now a storage area, tearing that out to give more room, and then building a storage area.
Out in front.
And I'm kind of like, $50,000 to tear this out, how much is it costing to replace it with a storage area down here?
It was
And
another
I'm-
50,000, it was on the list, so it's
So that's $100,000. I mean, I would definitely take the steps, the riser steps off the front of it, because they're not useful. But I don't really see where we're saving a lot for what we're spending, if that makes sense.
Can you just enclose the stage?
It is enclosed. I can show
Well,
you a
then why
picture.
do anything?
It has, well, it's
It has an
enclosed,
open-
it's got curtains in the front.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's-
the
you're
steps
building
went.
you're building a,
It's not the
enclosure,
most
correct?
attractive, but I think
That's a
it,
matter-
At the opposite end of the cafeteria, the stage and the walls go away on one end, and on the other end is where the storage. Now, the storage is for tables and chairs. When they don't need them, you know, for an event in the cafeteria,
I
they
know it's in here.
fold them up.
so they could be anywhere.
Here it is.
Okay. I mean, I trust y'all's judgment on that. I
But
have no
you're
problem with
taking
it.
it,
Oh, can I see your pink?
yeah, you're,
Paper. Mm.
and what
Yeah.
you're doing is, here it is, you're taking it off, so you've got an open area,
Yeah, as you demo
open
plan,
area, and now you're
storage
closing it
area
off.
there. Oh.
Understand.
So it just, you're flip-flopping, and it's $100,000 flip-flop.
Don't see it.
And you know, that just me, and like I said, that kitchen floor, if there's a way to save that, I don't know how much that is, but
Well,
that darn
you saw
floor,
the condition of the floor, there's nothing wrong with it.
not a
Yeah,
thing
not a
wrong
thing.
Old
with it.
quarry tile, it's
No,
been
like I
maintained
said.
beautifully over the years, so.
But-
And that's one that can be certainly value engineered out, you know, not knowing the current cost of that type of material for flooring and the exact square
No.
footage of that room, but that's something. The value engineering piece is not new to the construction industry. We did a lot of it at AS Roads.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, we've done it on.
we
all
thought it was too much
projects.
money, so don't do it, we'll take care of it.
Yeah, and the only other thing, and Mr. Hayes and I talked about it, and I don't know how much it would cost, and I am definitely, again, flexible with it, but you walk in and you do, that school is a solid built school, it's beautiful, the floor's beautiful, there's a lot of things that are not beautiful about it anymore that just age out and you have to deal with it. But the wall around the library, that is the tackiest looking wall. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it looks like a bathroom wall was put up.
You know the type of material, it's the old washable
Oh,
material.
yeah, no.
I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but is there any way we could put
But it could be
drywall up
sheet- it could
there?
be sheet
I
rock over
mean,
it, but-
because that is, we're gonna put, what, the estimate 14, close to 14, if we can work it maybe a little less than $14 million in it, and you walk in, and there's this wall that looks like you're walking into a big bathroom.
No.
And it's an old 1960s looking bathroom wall. And I am not getting above my raising at all, but, you know, I just have to say
It's not what you
it.
typically would see as an
Yeah,
application in a
and,
school environment. but-
You know, just throwing that out there, because that was the first thing that hit me. I was like, that is an ugly, just looks like somebody could kick it and knock it over a wall. So, But I do think that, looking at like the kitchen floor, if it doesn't need to be done, that floor is perfect. A lot, like I said, you walk into that kitchen, it doesn't match the rest of the building.
No.
I mean, it is totally spotless in there, and everything looks brand new, really, because they have kept it so well.
So I guess the other question is, like, right now, obviously, we're still working on our budget with you
Mhm.
guys. And the withhold amount right now is the 1.2 million. And my understanding is that's been withheld because you were afraid this project was gonna go over and we were gonna need more CIP funds. So I guess the question then comes down to, it appears like we know exactly how much over we would be if we did all these alternate items. I guess the decision for the school board is gonna be, what's more important, the $675,000 worth of extra add-ons or the additional 13.5 positions that take up $1 million? So I guess we just have to, Ralph, is that your understanding? We're just gonna have to choose between our 13 positions added that we wanna add and, or putting it into these renovations.
I have a question.
Yes.
You're $650,000 short, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you've got the kitchen that can be, money can come from
Right, so
there.
that was what, 150?
Why
Right.
can't you get together and say, if you can get $650,000 out of this, you got the deal. If you don't, rebid it.
I don't know if we're gonna have time to
Well,
rebid it.
again,
Well, I'm only asking that
Yeah.
because I
Okay.
don't know.
we have some
Yeah,
critical
just
milestones
the
to be met.
deadline
Understood.
with the grant money, but, I mean, can we ask them to drive their price down? I
Why
mean, if this
can't you?
was-
Yeah.
Well,
Give
I
me
don't
a
know.
reason that you
Well,
can't.
one of the things that I'm concerned about is, I know personal bidding of projects, and you don't have to rank them, so that's one thing, but, how does that work? Can we go back to these companies and say, hey, find me
At this point of the
500,000
game,
and get it
no.
out of there?
No, at
No.
this point of the game,
They bid.
you have to select a contractor, and then the bid
Then go back.
specifications, instructions, then we can go back and negotiate pricing if it's not favorable to us here.
Right.
Well, it's
Okay,
not
but it's gotta
favorable,
be-
and you're telling me it's not favorable.
It's gotta be the low bidder.
So we
Yeah.
would pick the low
So-
bidder and then go back to the low bidder and say,
Can-
we are $500,000 short, find me things to cut to make this $500,000 short.
And you can say, here are some things that we have identified,
Okay.
value engineer them out.
Okay,
Get me as close as you can to $650,000
right.
and be
Yeah.
done with it.
Because I believe if we just say it the way you did it, they're gonna say, well, all your alternates are gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, we've got we can only award based on the funding we have,
Right.
Right.
so.
So it's sort of like you're putting $14 million in the building, and when you walk in the building, they're going to go, what did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all agree that you cannot renovate that school and not replace the exterior windows that are built with the school. So they're 45, 46 years old. Could you not do the library? Well, after looking at the library, and I think, Mr. Rinaldi, you and I both agree that the current shelves are not the safest in the world.
There's a
And-
little lip on the shelf and a kid could put his hand up under there and get it stuck or cut. And I wasn't real happy with that.
And, like I said, the only thing on these alternatives that I thought we could just do without and not have, you wouldn't even notice they're not there, are those solar daylighting devices. The rest of it,
Yep.
And we can look at the project as a whole, rather than just necessarily the alternative bid items and those type of things, to see where we can find part of that funding as well.
yeah.
I mean, look at the entire thing itself, of where we can save here and there, and possibly with some of the alternative bids.
The only other thing would be, let's say in the gymnasium modifications, if we did a fundraiser to replace the curtains, and I don't even know how much that was, but otherwise,
Six
the
or
rest of
seven
it.
thousand.
Thought it was $8,000.
So it'd be a little more than that.
It's somewhere
Again,
in
I don't know
there.
the dimensions,
Now,
but they're
I
not cheap.
mean, but.
But that's something
otherwise-
after the fact, I believe.
Right,
Correct me if
keeping
I'm
work.
wrong. You can value engineer out, you can award the entire, the entire contract here, but then you're value engineering out to get down to a certain figure. And that could be on the whole
Mhm.
project, not necessarily specifically on those alternative add-ons. Because then it kind of looks, like you get it, but then you don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you
So
think-
what would be wrong? What would be wrong with approving this thing and go with the lowest bidder? I'm not saying that's what we have to do. I'm just throwing out an idea. I'm not favoring one or another. So you go with LCW. They were low on the options. They were a little high on the base compared to the other guy. But why don't we just go with all those alternates and approve it, and then engineer some of the money out of all of them, the base bid and the alternatives? Why don't we
Yeah,
do that?
that's what I
That's
was
what we
mentioning
said.
earlier, looking at, you're right, that's my.
I mean,
my-
just get it
looking
over
at the
with.
whole, but I just have to make sure that that funding is
There to
committed.
cover that.
So I couldn't enter into a contract without having the appropriated funds.
Well, I think we would get the funds, we just wouldn't get the 13 and a half positions. So,
I don't know, it always
Which, I mean,
seems
the
on
school
these
year's already
things that the
started,
money
it's
shows
like-
up somewhere.
I don't-
All of a sudden, it's like with teacher raises a long time ago. We can't give you a raise, but then all of a sudden there was a lot of pushback on it. And then the teachers got a raise. This is back in another county. So the money always seems to show up when it comes to push to shove.
Hopefully, the state or federal government would come up with another, here's some construction money. Who knows? Who would have ever thought we've been giving the CARES money and so forth we've gotten so far?
Infrastructure.
As far as on our side, I can't, I'm one vote, Walt's one vote, but, the old saying, you can't get blood out of a turnip, and,
Turnip's looking red.
and it's in a chokehold. Because I know people don't, everybody's priority is their priority. And this is a priority, and, it's important, but then I've got fire trucks to buy, and ambulances to buy, and.
And we don't want our
didn't-
taxes raised.
Yeah, and
Our property values have already gone up, so we're already gonna go through shit
Yeah.
on that one.
it's, like I said, I wish I had that tree. I would water that baby and take care of it and pluck the money every day, but, and I know everybody here understands that. So I can't promise what I can't promise, but we've got to do what we've got to do as far as, whittling it down as best we can without taking out things that, like you say, what did we do for $14 million? And we're close.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
We are close.
We are close.
And these people do schoolwork all the time, and there is profit that can be used or given up just because they get the bid, and it is $14 million. And I'm not saying that they're gonna make a boatload of money, I am not. But they have the ability to cut some out, and then we're cutting some out, and with value engineering it out. You're gonna get that number pretty doggone close. I mean, if the school funds, if the cafeteria funds got $2 million, maybe they want to come up off of a little more.
Well, there are certain
Well,
regulations.
yeah, there are
Yeah, that's
regulations.
Walt doesn't know.
No, I know, there's government strings attached to everything. And, I mean, I would be curious to know more about this whole Davis-Bacon situation with having to pay the contractors exorbitant amounts of money because of some of the grant money that's involved in this. Does that only apply to certain things? Like, there's gotta be
No, it applies to the entire job.
the entire project. So
And Davis-Bacon
any
Act,
money
you know,
coming in,
clearly
we're
states
stuck with all of it.
local prevailing wage rates. Now, it doesn't say union rates, local prevailing wage rates is what Davis-Bacon addresses, but it is attached to the grants. So,
So that makes it attached to the
There's,
entire
yeah,
project?
yeah.
Okay.
So, the general contractor and all the subcontractors have to agree that, yes, they're paying in accordance with the Davis-Bacon Wage Act, so.
And with our bids of what we receive, it's sort of on the timeline as well as far as how long those bids are good for.
How much timeline do you have?
I want to say it's 30 days from the time that we receive, if I'm correct.
And in this market, as we all know, the supply chains and lead times with manufacturers, that's all the manufacturers are willing to hold. I had a couple back during the summer, 14 days is all they're gonna hold their pricing for. That was straight from the manufacturer.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean,
We're
we
sitting
have
here ready to make a
answer this
decision. They
tonight.
need to be ready to make a decision too.
Yeah.
So what
Well,
would the
sometimes
question be
both.
for this committee to our board for tonight's
What-
recommendation? I guess.
Yeah. It's a recommendation of what we want to do from this building committee for our
To our
board.
board, do we award just on base bid? Do we award on base bid plus all alternates, or?
I mean, I think our hands are pretty well tied to having to recommend base bid plus all alternates, because legally, I don't think we even have a choice to pick and choose from alternates.
And you can't.
But I think
yeah.
we would have to recommend base bid plus all alternates, and have the school board just keep very much in mind that
There
we
you go.
need, we need you guys
Probably
to do all the hard
Oh, I
work
know,
to
yeah.
find the
Yeah.
$500,000 to value engineer out of this, otherwise I can
Right.
tell what's coming from the board of supervisors, and that's gonna be, hey, guess what, those 13 and a half positions are gone.
Well, you still
So-
have the consent,
Contingency.
but
You
the
may not
5%,
spend it. You
you
don't know
might
yet.
not spend that $600,000. You're gonna spend some of it, but it's also another
Yeah,
game.
I know, but I assume the worst,
Yes.
hope for the best,
Yes,
but plan for the
Well,
worst.
no,
And,
there's unforeseen conditions in any renovation project,
Yeah.
especially the building of that vintage. But again,
and I'm just never a fan of seeing, I mean, school buildings being beautiful is great, but it's the work that takes place inside of the school that is the important
Yes.
part. So
Yes.
that's my concern and my pleading with you guys to please find $500,000 worth of value engineering, please.
There is no rule on the 5% either. That's just the customary, what we've always done.
Smart thing to do.
what today's market.
Yes, yeah, definitely. a
Some
smart thing
firms
to
will
do.
still use 2 to 3%.
Well, like I said, on that library wall, if it is gonna bump up, we'll just make do with it. But it just seems a shame if that little bit of drywall wouldn't bump it up. But, you know, we
Yeah,
got
yeah.
That could be a maintenance item later.
I mean, we could cut the
Yeah.
stage curtains and probably afford
Still want to do
the
stuff
library
yourself.
wall.
It's probably a fairly strong bet that that was installed by maintenance years ago.
And also, the demo of the stage could be a maintenance item too. So there's a couple of items there that you can
We could value.
whittle down.
So are we saying as a group that we're looking at doing base plus all alternatives, and that,
That would be your
and that
recommendation.
would be Lance,
Yes, that's awesome.
and that it would be understood that the funding, okay, we use the current funding with the evaluation of the value engineering.
Once we enter agreement, then we start negotiations
Right.
with the low bidder.
Right.
This-
I think
Some of
specifically
that can be
first-
like Walt's saying. Okay, you get into bring them in on the value engineering part and why they're in here, and then you say, now look, what else can you do? You know, right at the same time. Let them know what the situation is and, you know, what can you do? They know that building better than we do as far as what they're gonna do.
Right.
and the complexity. So I say you get them, you prove this thing today, get them in here as soon as it's practical, and hammer them a little bit and see what happens.
So just want to make sure our members of the Board of Supervisors, you feel comfortable with this decision?
Yeah, I'm for getting that price down.
Yeah.
And our school board members?
Yeah.
Yes. And what do we need to do to get like an official line on here with the funding section that says exactly how much is coming from the library fund? Because I think
The
that's
library
important, because
fund?
that's,
You mean-
correct, or
Nutrition.
from the cafeteria fund, yes, I'm sorry, from the
I can work
cafeteria
on
fund.
that. I can make
Because
that
we had
happen.
said that was probably 150, but not 100% sure. So I think that would be helpful to see that specific
That gets started with.
number. Thank you.
Yeah, start at
And
That's
that's
just
a
such a
start.
big chunk. So
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like adding up a bunch of small numbers. When you get to the bottom, you say, oh my God, that's a lot. But you work that the opposite way with these guys. And don't be afraid to hammer them either. They're used to it.
This is not LCW's first project in Warren County. Won't be our last. I can't speak for Ted, you know, but based on what we see here.
That's
right.
Make the recommendation.
There are others that are coming.
That you would include each item bids into the NASIM or the alternative to the solar third. Yes, that's what I'm thinking, okay? That's what I'm thinking.
Well, that'll be the
Or you
next
could
project
just
to
put,
start planning and working on too, so.
alternates,
You know,
1%.
that's-
Yeah, you
Could
could
say
do
that.
that. And
Next
that
time we'll
recognizes
know.
Lawrence Construction of
No
Winchester.
alternate.
Yeah,
And just
right.
add this to it.
You know how to-
You know, but
You know how to work
Grimm
the
and Parker, in all honesty,
And it was in their bid spec,
Correct.
it says successive alternative bids, I mean, it clearly
It's like
states it in their
it
bid
has to-
spec.
yeah, I understand that, but you would think they would have given advice
And then
on
do I need to say the amount
the opening
of
and,
the base
and
bid
the
of
situation with all those alternative projects. You know, that they gotta be in a certain order and all that sort of thing.
It had to be broken out.
It was in
They're
the bid
the,
instructions.
they're the architect engineers, they should have had it specified how, you know, we do it.
All
And
right,
when we turned it in, they should have said, well, wait a minute.
we're gonna go to the
you
next
do
meeting.
adjust these a little bit.
Ralph is that kid always talking in class like that.
No, y'all weren't listening.
No, we weren't listening to you. That's what that kid says. Hey, I'm listening just for listening to you. So we're gonna adjourn this meeting and then we'll go ahead and we will start our school board meeting.
I was just gonna check where you're at. All right. We're good. Okay.